If all you've got to do today is find peace of mind, come round, you can take a piece of mine. And if all you...
Language planning occurs in most countries by their relevant governments when they have more than one language within the community. What I aim to answer is what is language planning and how is it implemented, discussing Wales as a case study. So now we come to our first question, what is language planning? Here, Holmes, Jarr and Bachman provide three definitions based on their research within the sociological field. We can see that all three have a concurrent theme of a deliberate act expressed in order to accomplish change in language within the community. Wales has always had its own language, as well as lending a home to English due to the close proximity of England. According to Mackay and Hamburger, the Welsh-speaking population decreased due to the Act of Union in 1536 and 1542, naming English as the official language, stating that it was to be used in law and government administration. However, in 1588, at an age where church attendance was high, the Bible was translated into Welsh. Identifying the Welsh language as the language of religion and worship, this facilitated the communities to organise and participate in activities through the medium of their native tongue, enabling the country's identity to remain strong up until the mid-19th century, when 80% of the population still spoke Welsh. This was soon to change due to migration and an influx of employees into the industry areas. Welsh speakers then fell by 5% of the total population. Through the 20th century, there was a decline due to collapse of industry and a reduction in employment, with unemployment rising from 9.5% in 1979 to 17.4% in 1987 in Gwynedd. Rural dwellers migrated to urban areas in search of work, and English speakers migrated to Wales to take advantage of cheap housing and a better place to live, with a substantial amount being young families due to a 42% increase in Welsh learners between the ages of 3 to 11 years. Properties were also brought as second homes in order for people to retire to a later date, outpricing locals in their own areas and forcing them to move to cheaper urban areas. There was also an increase in English media such as TV channels, print media and the internet. Chapel attendance also declined, and so did community-based activities where Welsh was the main language of communication. All these combined led to a 30% decrease in Welsh speakers in Gwynedd alone. What is interesting is that the Welsh strongholds also had the highest unemployment rate, suggesting that migration for employment in Wales was a prominent cause for a decrease in the language use. In order for Welsh language to gain strength, not to disappear, intervention was needed, which is where language planning comes into play. There are four areas of language planning. The first is selection. The government decided which language was to be maintained, taking into consideration the political importance and the power of English internationally, as well as the identity of the local communities and pride in their culture. The government decided to create a bilingual policy where both languages are equal. The Welsh Assembly Government has developed the Welsh language, which is now thriving due to intervention and a language policy, with the vision of a bilingual nation that can use either language through every area of everyday life and gain the same opportunities in either language. However, before this, there were other legislations that came into force. In 1942, the Welsh Courts Act was implemented, providing Welsh speakers with the right to speak Welsh in courts throughout Wales, recognising the language as an official language. In 1967, the Welsh Courts Act was updated and the Welsh Language Act came into existence, allowing Welsh to be more widely used in law and government administration. The Welsh Language Act in 1993, however, was a milestone, identifying Welsh as an equal to English. It targets three main areas: equality, rights and facilitation. These areas provide a basis for the Welsh language to grow and the possibility for the percentage of speakers to increase. The government promises are facilitated and promoted by a government-funded body, the Welsh Language Board. The acts have been updated many times, but the most recent is the proposed Welsh Language Measures 2010, which aims to provide more clarity and consistency for Welsh speakers in the services they use, creating organisations and bodies which have investigation rights and enforcement powers in relation to the Welsh language, as well as allowing Welsh speakers to appeal about provisions through the medium of Welsh. The overall aim of the measures is to modernise existing frameworks and meet the commitments of the One Wales document. This document informs us of the government's commitments to the Welsh language, providing a vision through set goals, such as language status, linguistic rights, and dispersion of Welsh through a variety of mediums. The next phase of language planning is codification. Although Welsh has been codified for centuries, this phase was not needed within Wales. However, other countries such as Norway has had to create a grammar and dictionary for the variety known as nynorsk, which was still being adapted in the early 20th century. The third phase is elaboration. In order for the Welsh to become widespread, resources had to be made available in all domains. The main changes were government documentation appearing in both English and Welsh. Welsh became a medium of education, with lessons being taught widely throughout Wales, but also that Welsh became a subject on the curriculum in Wales. Funds for businesses to carry out changes in order for them to become bilingual were also made available through the Welsh Language Board. The final phase is acceptance. In order for the previous three phases to work and make an impact, acceptance needs to be gained throughout the land. To do this, the government realised that, to sustain the language, they had to get the language implemented at a young age. This was done by teaching in Welsh as well as English in primary schools. Funding for projects and organisations that work with and for the Welsh language were made available again through the Welsh Language Board. Community generation began with sessions being held in Welsh and giving the communities back to the residents in order to increase community spirit and identity to the Welsh language. These strategies have increased the Welsh-speaking population by 2.1% between 1991 and 2001, with the greatest increase being in the south. As you can see, the Welsh language has gained recognition from other nations and has accomplished all aims set out in the One Wales document. What the government is now aiming to do is to make the language sustainable for future generations. The language planning strategy which I have discussed shows a method which has proved successful for many countries including Wales. And so in summary, we can see that due to the decline of Welsh language in the 20th century, the government implemented a strategy in 1942 to combat the decline and increase the number of people who spoke Welsh. The Welsh Language Measures document reports that all aims in the One Wales document have been achieved, with the first increase in speakers in the 2001 census. From this, we can deduce that language planning is an organised and deliberate act in order to solve language issues within a community to protect or gain identity and culture.